7 book. This is 3-1, the percent equation. And this equation is a trilogy. Think like rock, paper, scissors, or snap, crackle, and pop. It's got 3 parts, and this equation works out like this. The part is equal to the percent multiplied by the whole. And we're going to use the variable y for the part, m for the percent, and x for the whole. And all of these problems work on the idea that if you know 2 things, you can find the third. In our first example, we're going to use the percent equation to find an unknown part. That's represented by the variable y. And in order to do that, there's a couple of steps. The first thing to do is to convert the percent m to a decimal and multiply by the known whole, and that's x. And the second step, of course, is to multiply. So in this case, our equation is y equals mx. And we converted 40% to 0.4 as a decimal. We multiplied it by 50, and we get the answer of 20. In other words, the answer is 20 is 40 parts of 50, or 40% of 50. All right, let's take a look at another example, make sure everyone can do this. Let's look at this example. What is 30% of 40? And I've got the same sort of setup on this particular problem. I'm trying to find what 30 parts or 30% of 40 is. In order to do that, if I want, I can write that in as y, I can write that in as m, I can write that in as x, and what I'm looking for is this. Y equals 30% would convert to a decimal, 0.3, moving that decimal point once, twice to the left and dropping the percent sign, multiplying that by 40, and y would equal 12. And 12 is in fact 30% of 40. Okay, in this example we're going to be using the percent equation to find an unknown whole. That will be represented by x. So in this case, we know the percent, we know the part, and what we're looking for is the unknown whole. Once again, we know 2 things, and we're looking for the unknown third thing. In this case, what we're going to do is we are going to take y, our part, and we're going to divide it by m, our percent, which needs to be in a decimal form, to find out our whole. And once again, there's just a couple of steps to doing this. The first thing here is we're going to convert the percent to a decimal. The second thing is we're going to set up an equation with the known part, y, divided by the given percent, m, in decimal form to solve for the unknown whole, x. And then we're going to solve this by dividing. And yes, you can use a calculator to solve these problems. You can do them by hand. But basically your equation is going to look something like this. Y equals mx is going to, y over m equals x is going to translate into this. 29 is our y, that is our part. 25% converted to a decimal is 0.25, and it's going to equal x, our whole. And of course, this x is going to be a larger number. I mean, we're taking 0.25, which is a relatively small number, and dividing it into the whole number 29, and we're going to get a lot of these, right? And sure enough, we do. 1/16 equals x. In other words, the answer is 25% of 116 is 29. Here is another example of that concept. Let's take a look at this one. In this example, I'm going to use 36 is 20% of what number? And let's identify the parts, the wholes, what we got here. All right, we don't know what the whole is. That's what we're looking for. That's going to be x. All right, 20%, well, that's clearly our percent. That's our m. And y is what we've got right here. All right. So what do? 36 is 20% of what number? You can think of it that you started out like this, right? 36 equals 20% multiplied by x. And what we're going to rewrite this as is essentially this. 36 divided by 0.2 equals x. And if we do this correctly and we get our division straight, we'll find out that the answer to this is 180, which makes sense. How many 0.2s are going to fit into 36? Quite a few. 180 equals x. So 36 is 20% of 180. Now we're going to use the percent equation to find the unknown percent m. And if we take the part and we divide it by the whole, we're going to get a decimal or a whole number in a decimal, and then we're going to have to convert that into a percent. So in this case, we're going to take the equation y divided by x equals m. The part divided by the whole is going to equal the percent. Once again, y is the part, m is the percent, x is the whole. And to find the unknown percent using the percent equation, we are going to divide the part by the whole and get a decimal or a whole number in a decimal and convert it into a percent. Those are the steps. And this is what it looks like. What percent of 116 is 29? Well, m is our unknown percent. That's what we're looking for. Our part is y, and 116 is our whole. And if I divide 116 into 29, very little of this will fit into 29. As a matter of fact, only 25% of it will. M is going to equal 0.25. And once again, yes, you can do this by hand or you can use a calculator. The answer to our question is 29 is 25% of 116. Let's take another problem and take a look at what that would look like if we try to do it this way. All right, 22, pardon me, is what percent of 40? All right, so 22 is our part, 40 is our whole, and if I take 22 and I divide it by 40, that's going to equal our percent, which we're representing by m. And if I divide 40 into 22, clearly I'm going to get less than a whole, because 22 is smaller than 40, and I'm going to find out that m equals 0.55, and then I'm going to convert this into a percent, moving my decimal point 2 places to the right, and m equals 55%. Those are the ways that we're going to be using the percent equation to solve 3 basic types of percent problems, looking for the unknown part, the unknown whole, and the unknown percent.